Everybody, ChillCraft here, and I wanted to go ahead and just make sure that I thank everybody who stopped by and saw the last video on how to approach the Zerg on launch day and how to get a little bit ahead. There's a lot of feedback, whether it's good, constructive criticism or negative, but I really do appreciate some of those things, and I'm learning, so I'm going to definitely be incorporating a lot of that in my future content. If someone were to come to me and say, what is your defining moment that really, you got hooked into vanilla WoW, and what is the most exciting thing you're looking forward to when you think about WoW Classic? And it isn't necessarily the big cities or the unique leveling or maybe even dungeons, but if I think about the first time that I kind of walked into STV, it was just a majestic experience. There's little ways to describe what that zone means to me. Now, for anybody who knows me, I'm big on PvP, and there's an aspect there of hostility and tension that it's very hard to describe, but it's not really replicated as well in the rest of the zones. And whether we're talking about the Guribashi Arena or we're just talking about Hemet Nest and Waste Camp, it's just super chaotic, and at the same time it teaches you a lot about the other faction, and your playstyle changes a lot because of it. And the city that we have at the bottom of STV is Booty Bay, and for me, Booty Bay was the first time that I walked into a city that was a neutral city. All the goblin cities are neutral, but there's a dynamic in Booty Bay that you won't find in Ratchet or Gadgetzan or Everlook, where people are actively looking to attack one another. And there's this underlying tension and hostility that exists when you are in the inn, or you're looking at the auction house that exists there, or you're going to different vendors where you're always kind of looking behind your back, and you're not sure if someone's going to take advantage of the guard walking by and one shot you or whatnot. And when I think about that, there's that's I think the moment that I really saw the beauty of WoW. It wasn't just two factions running in parallel. You saw that there was these neutral places where you could be aggressive, passive aggressive. You could do stuff like drop traps or drop herb bison totems, and or so even some places in the inn where you can take advantage and kind of start an all-out brawl. And one of the tribes that exists that really catches your attention in the game, at least with Classic, is the Goblin tribe, right? It's a race that exists later on down retail that you can roll. One of the things I did for when I was big into Hearthstone was I played through sort of the starting levels of the Goblin race to be able to unlock I think it was like a Paladin hero or something like that. And the sort of the Goblin perspective has always fascinated me, just because they're not loyal at all. They're there to make money, to make some gold, and at the end of the day, that's all they care about. And so they want to be able to assert as much authority as possible, where they can kind of expose the two factions, whether it's Horde or the Alliance, to actually make some pocket change from them. So one of the things I started thinking about when I started thinking about trying to make gold, I automatically created that parallel with the Goblin race, and I was wondering, could you basically forget the main game and roll a Goblin for Classic? Now that isn't choosing a race, but it's kind of role playing that mindset of just being somebody that's trying to make as much gold as possible. When I think about the first phase of the game, everybody's going to be trying to level up for raids and dungeons and get to 60 as quickly as possible. But the resource that I think is the most important by far is gold. Gold is going to drive the future economy. It's going to drive the health of the server. So I started thinking about, okay, so how can we, maybe you don't have enough time to play. You're not going full neck beard. You're not staying at home and quitting all, your social responsibilities. And you want to be as efficient as possible. How can you, be a full-time employee, have a family, not lose out on everything that life's throwing out at you, and still be an influencer in the economy with the way that you can make money? So in this video, I'm going to go through what I think are my beginner tips. I got a couple more guides coming on later. One guide that you should see by the end of the week or early next week is my leatherworking guide. Now I'm going to give a shout out to this, and you can go ahead and check this out later. But one of the things I think that is very important, it isn't necessarily a tip that I'm going to focus on too much, but when it comes to the game economy, you always want to zig while everybody's zagging. So you always want to go in a different direction and not necessarily follow the crowd, because there you're going to stumble upon opportunities. And really making money in the game is all about opportunity. And everybody in the beginning of the game is going to be going skinning, and that's actually my first tip, which I'll talk about in a second. But with that, not a lot of people, I think, are going to value leatherworking as a profession, and it's a great opportunity, I think, for anybody to make money in the end game quickly. And if you want to drop it later on, that you have that kind of opportunity. But I think, especially in the beginning of the game, leatherworking is going to be a key to making a lot of money quickly. But I'll talk about that in my next video. So as I said before, the first tip is really to take skinning. Now, the reason that you want to take skinning is because it gives an additional drop to any sort of beast that you are killing, and this opens up a lot of different avenues, whether it's avoiding some of the different quest lines that exist and just grinding beasts. This is extremely prevalent in the Barrens, where you have a lot of quests that tell you to kill raptors or plain striders, and like you can kind of take advantage of both situations and make some additional revenue. Now, leather, as you level it up, it's going to increase in value, and it's going to be an additional item that you can turn in for a stack. So early on, you're going to be going through light leather into medium leather into heavy leather and thick leather. One stack of light leather, which is 20 items of light leather, is going to give you 3 silver. That 3 silver is crucial to be able to getting the skills that you need and actually working your way towards a mount both at level 40 and at level 60. So being able to provide that additional revenue is going to be extremely important on those key aspects. So make sure you take skinning. So this takes me to point number 2. Now, point number 2 is don't sell the white items. As you kind of go through the game, and if you've gone through and listened to my previous guide, you have noticed that I talked about investing in bags and looting everything. Early on, you're going to want to just go ahead and sell everything, but there are a couple of items that have a text that is white, and these are different from the gray items that you can sell to vendors, because these white items can be used in any sort of recipe, whether it's alchemy or cooking or blacksmithing or whatnot. And you want to be able to hold on to these items. And what I usually do, and this is actually a further video down the line, but I have an additional character that I'll set up near the bank, and I'll just send all my white items to them. And this allows me to log in once a week and basically take a look at my items and see which one has value to either a profession I'm interested in, like holding on to mystery meat for cooking, or if it's something that maybe I can't use because I'm rolling horde and it's an alliance only recipe sort of thing, and then vendor it. So it's an easy way to kind of organize myself and also keep something that I know I will benefit from in the near future. So with white items, make sure you don't immediately sell them. There's a potential that down the road you'll either use them or somebody else will want them. So what's interesting is that with phase 2 coming out, PvP system really opens up, and you're not going to necessarily think about leveling up engineering immediately because it's very expensive and time consuming, but you're going to see a lot of people either drop a profession or pick up engineering, and anything that has a white item that's tied to an engineering recipe is going to be extremely lucrative. So hold on to that white item. In the mail system, you can keep it, I think, between different players that you're having for about 30 days. So you have the opportunity to use the mail system almost as a bank in itself. As long as it doesn't disappear, you can hold on to those white items. And my idea is be patient, because if you're not using them immediately, someone's going to want to use them in the future, and you're going to be able to take advantage of supply and demand, really make some money with the white items. My third and last tip is be frugal. Now there's different components to this, but when it comes to vanilla and WoW Classic, there's going to be all sorts of candy items. Now these can be, epic maces and gear that's really expensive, stuff like the Staff of Jordan, that you're like, I gotta have it. But for majority of the items that you have to have, it's going to be replaced in about 5 levels. The idea of being frugal, you're kind of doing a couple different things that really put you in a position to not spend money. The first one is, most importantly, stay away from the auction house. So with the auction house, the reason why I say stay away from it is because even though you're going to be able to find a couple good money-making opportunities there, which I'll talk about in a later video, for the most of us, at least for myself, I don't necessarily have the best self-control. And so I know that this doesn't just apply to me, and kind of the case is where if I see something that's really nice, I will spend the money on it. So my first strategy when it comes to being frugal is just staying away from the auction house. If I see something on the auction house that I know I want to invest in to later make money on, I will actually only go to the auction house with a low-level character that I'm interested in being that, bank all auction house moneymaker. And that takes away from my desire from buying something immediately on my main character. The second part of being frugal is use a talent calculator. Now, this can go against some of the immersiveness that maybe some of you want to have when it comes to WoW Classic, but there are loads of talent calculators that exists out there where you can be in a position to test out how you want to build your character starting at level 10. And for those of you guys who haven't played through WoW Classic before, at level 10, you kind of put 1 point a level into building out your character into 3 separate trees, and they all provide differences into how your character is going to behave, how strong your skills are going to be. And there are going to be multiple times where through the leveling process, if you haven't really thought about using the talent calculator to build out how you're going to spend the money, you're going to want to, respec that point that you spent. Now, the challenging part about this is that it's not free in WoW Classic. You actually have to pay money to respec, and that monetary value is going to scale high each time you do it. So my personal goal is for each character that I level, I will have a leveling spec that I'll work out ahead of time and use that until the 50s. So for Shaman, the challenge is that, I'll be leveling enhancement, and then in my 50s, I'll be changing and respecing to elemental resto. right? Depending on your class, you might not actually have to do a respec, but most of us will have to do an end game respec. And afterwards, after you get to end game, as many respecs as you need to be able to move between farming and raiding and PvP as you need, see fit. But on the way up, you want to try to focus on that one build as possible to be able to save as much money as possible. So use a talent calculator to avoid that. And then lastly, the last part of being frugal is also tied to immersiveness. And this is, don't buy all the spells. So every 2 levels, you get the opportunity to get new spells. And there's a lot of spells that exist that you really don't need. Whether they're kind of different ranks in an ability that you have, or something that you very rarely use. There's no benefit from it immediately. I wouldn't spend money on it. You're gonna see that in the low levels, buying spells or skills is not as expensive, but there's as you get into your 20s and 30s, it really hits pretty hard. So something like a frost resistance totem is not something I need until very late classic WoW, and there's no reason to spend that money immediately. The economy itself is going to go through ebbs and flows until it stabilizes, and I think it's going to take until, I would say, halfway through phase 2 to really stabilize, because that's where the game really, there's going to be a big dynamic change between phase 1 and phase 2. And in each phase will have its kind of shifts there, which we'll talk about with auction house video. But at that point is where you want to maybe think about, or even as you hit 60, think about investing in some of those skills that you need. But I would go ahead and try to be frugal, because my goal is to get my level 40 mount and my level 60 mount as soon as possible. So with that, I appreciate everyone coming and checking out this video. This is, my guide on how to be a goblin in WoW Classic. Thanks everybody for the support and for checking it out.